we can just keep talking about how terrible the smoke is in Colorado. And then we'll get started in exactly 10 seconds. LinkedIn. Hey, everybody on LinkedIn. Welcome to the latest episode of the Pageback Leadership Series. We're here for 30 minutes every Thursday with solutions to challenges business leaders in the middle market face. So let's get started for today. Last week, I asked you to think about the worst run business that you've ever encountered and what that was like. And we talked about some of the solutions that middle market companies can put into place around business planning and business strategy. Today, and if you missed that, go look at it. Today, we're going to talk about the busiest business leader you know. Somebody that's maybe missing deadlines, maybe they don't return your calls quickly, or they're just always overwhelmed. Now, it could be that they're just right now facing this really serious business challenge and they're working really hard to address it. But it also could be that they have a struggle with delegating, which is our topic for today. So we are going to get started with that. But first, let me introduce my panel and bring them in. We have three experts on the call today. First, we have Joe White. Joe is a Vistage chair with Vistage Worldwide. And Joe was drafted by the Cincinnati Reds and the Seattle Mariners, and he played for Seattle before a shoulder injury ended his baseball career. I did not know that until he sent me this intro. So that's fascinating. After that, he turned to a career in education. He taught accounting, business law, and professional business. And he recently published his first book, The 3 Ps, Finding Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion, which is now available on Amazon. And I know April is going to share a link to Joe's LinkedIn profile for you today. Next, we have Lisa Smith. Lisa is a human resources consultant at Puzzle HR. She has over 20 years of progressive success providing prestigious organizations with strategic human resource solutions. She has broad experience in leadership development, employment law, employee relations, performance management, compensation, team development, talent management. Boy, this is a long list, Lisa. Succession planning, coaching, organizational design, and training. And then also, which is really key for the market today, is talent acquisition, because I don't know a business owner out there in any market that's not struggling to keep people going. Next, we have Mark Pattini. He's an advisor with Advisory Cloud. And Mark is an inspirational and dynamic executive leader with proven expertise empowering top-performing cross-functional teams to build, shape, and establish an enterprise recognized today as the most powerful retail brand in America. And I want to hear more, Mark, about that at some point, Mark. Mark enables companies to navigate through challenging transitions, seamless integration of new product lines, and passionate commitment to excellence, providing results-focused initiatives that transform strategic vision into a profitable reality. And I think that's what we all want, is strategic vision to profits. Who doesn't want that? All right. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Mike Black. I'm the CEO and managing partner of Page Black. I'll talk about Page Black later. I am the least important person on this call. So we will move forward right into our first question. And that first question is, I think when I meet people who have a problem with delegation, they don't know it. They see it as being overwhelmed. They're busy. And so my first question for the panel as we get started today is, how do I know I have a problem delegating? If I'm always busy, how do I know it's not just the latest crisis? I'm not just whatever that is. I think that we're addicted to work, and that's a whole other thing. We'll get there later. Lisa, your face says you have a good answer to this question. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. So one of the things that I've seen happen when you're not good at delegating is you have a turnover problem. And the people who leave the organization are saying they're going to get another job with a better career opportunity. And that means you're not teaching them, you're not developing them, you're not pushing down duties and experiences to them so they can grow. Another problem is that you're having to recruit from the outside when you have an open position, especially in that management rank. If you're not developing your people to move into those roles, then you've got a delegation problem. And then, smaller businesses, what I've seen is, they get to a place where they want to sell their business, and all of that knowledge and experience is right here. And nobody wants to buy that because there's no one else in the organization who can do what that busy business owner does. So those are other examples of where I've seen someone having a delegation problem.
All right. That absolutely makes sense. What does it look like on the inside when you've talked to them, Lisa?
Well, what I found is that we need to look at your talent as a whole. And you look at your org chart and you say, okay, based on all of these folks in my organization, What is their potential and what is their performance level? Are they ready to take on something new? And where do they have gaps to move to the next level? Then you need to go and whiteboard your own duties and what responsibilities that you hold. And having somebody else help you with this from the outside, especially, is really a really healthy way to handle this. So thinking about all the things that you have on your plate, and then thinking about how that matches up with your org chart and how you can delegate down all the way throughout the organization and give people more opportunities.
All right. That makes total sense to me. And I love the outside perspective, because I think if you're in this, it's really, one, if we work for this person or you're this person in this situation, neither of those are easy places to bring this up from. Joe, as a Vistage chair, my experience of people who are working at Vistage or go to Vistage are that they're all serious business people. Like, they really want to go after it. What do you see as, what does it look like from your perspective when they're struggling with delegation?
From my perspective, it's more of a trust issue. Do they trust the people that they've hired to be in those positions to do the roles that they're supposed to do? And I think that's where you have to ask yourself, do I really trust Jim Smith, who I just hired 6 months ago to run this division of our company? And are you giving yourself an opportunity to trust that person? And I think sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I too controlling? And am I empowering my people to do their job? Am I coaching them to do their job? And trust yourself first, that you are a good coach, that you are coaching these people to do what you hired them to do. You hired them for a reason. I tell people this all the time in business. You hired that person because you believed in them. Now you got to show them that you believe in them, and you got to coach them up to the point where you can trust them to do their job. And that will take a lot of pressure off of you.
So the challenge I see there when I work with people who are struggling on this, and I don't coach people, I just kind of see people, we work with them, and I'm like, man, these people struggle, is that it's not good enough if it's not exactly what they want. And so I have a way I think about that. But Joe, how do you think about that? Like, if it's not the exact copy of what I would do, and I can't delegate, what's a new way to think about that?
I think the new way to look at that is again, I think it goes back to trust. How much do I trust this person and what they're producing? And if it's not exactly what you want to do, or get what you want from them, I think that's the opportunity that you have as the leader, the opportunity to go in and coach and help your people become better at what they're doing. That's why you're a leader in the first place. If they get better, your company's going to get better. So if it's not exactly what you want, you might have done two things. You might have, not really explained fully what you wanted from them. And two, you might not have coached it up enough in them. I call it CPC. You got to coach it, then you have to practice it with them, and then you got to challenge it with them. And if you haven't done that, the trust isn't there for you to believe in what they're doing.
Fair. My perspective is also that I think when people struggle with this, they don't necessarily, they're not seeing the value of what it could be, even though they didn't do it. Like, maybe it's even better. It just doesn't look like what you want, but it's actually better than what you want, but you can't recognize it. So I think there's also a piece of stepping back. Mark, you've worked at large and small organizations. What do you see? And just so you know, you're on mute, so you may have to click that button.
Yeah, I would agree with Lisa and Joe, what they've talked about, in a combination of things here. And in my experience in a large organization, you had to look for the clues from the subordinates and the peers of the person that we're talking about, so that that idea of what does it sound like when a person is creating a controlling environment that prevents delegation from actually occurring. The idea that someone may direct a person, whether it's a peer or a subordinate, rather than understanding the difference between direction and delegation. So you look for those kind of signs when you're trying to supervise and coach that person, so that you can see it as quickly as possible to then get into the coaching mode. The idea that someone who is having trouble delegating can see it clearly, as you said in the intro, Mike, I think is paramount. And they're just not going to pick it up on their own. So you helping them see the clues that you see that can help them see it for themselves. So large organization, you got to get the remote leadership has to find these things, or it's not going to work. In a small organization, in a smaller organization, the tendency is to want to own everything, take each detail and deliver on it, and in understanding that doesn't accomplish what Lisa was describing in terms of getting people ready. I'm working with someone right now that is planning on opening a couple more stores. And what I'm working with him now is trying to help him build infrastructure in the smallest way for his management team to understand how to make that happen. Otherwise, they're trying to own everything in the work, 24/7 and these smaller environments to make sure that everything is done exactly what Joe said. It's not good enough. As far as the communication goes, and clearly setting expectations, I think one of the key things that people miss is what does success look like when this delegation actually occurs? Because it's not perfection that you're looking for. There's an end game, whether it's developing as a stress, this is a stretch assignment and you delegate for that reason, or there's something very specific and a tangible result you're looking for in delegating a task or an assignment. And making sure that everybody's on the same page with that before it even starts, I think, is key.
All right. I 100%. And what I love about what you just said is you can turn, when people don't delegate in part because there's some level of an emotional reward when we don't delegate. We feel more empowered. We feel better about what we're doing. We feel like the result's better. And so if we can tie a reward to delegation, I think there's a win there. That's funny. I was on a training about that yesterday and I got to use it today. So that's a win for me, I guess. Training dollars well spent. All right, let's go to our next question. Moving us along. What's the top struggle? We've talked about why, we've talked a little bit about why it happens, and we've led into this idea that it could be because they don't trust is one thing Joe said. Let's talk more tactically, like the struggle that they have in making it happen. And so, Mark, since we made you go last, and by the way, folks, Mark, his camera died on him. He asked me. I asked him to stick around anyways because I feel like he's got a lot of wisdom. We'll have to have him back on so we can actually see him when he's doing that wisdom. Although he's swearing to me that we're better off. I don't buy it. All right, Mark, what's your answer? What's the top tactical struggle people face in delegating?
Oh, well, I think the idea that there's a long-term gain from delegation, and most managers, mid-level managers, get tied up in the moment to deliver instantly, whether that means in the next hour or the next day or that week, and that sometimes easier for them just to assume that control, and then the tendency to want to direct takes over. Do this to get that done exactly the way we need it done, without considering the longer-term impacts. So I think that gets in the way of actually establishing some kind of a tactical plan on how to deliver on an environment that's created by a coach rather than a director.
Got it. Okay. Joe, what do you think?
I think fear comes into play with this a lot, to be honest with you. I hear this a lot from people that I call. And they say, I'm just too busy. I'm overwhelmed. I'm working 15 hours a day and blah, blah, blah. And the thing I want to say back to them is, what do you fear about taking some time away? Or if you were away from your business for 5 or 6 hours, what are you afraid of? To me, they almost think that they're so afraid that if they leave or they're not there, overseeing everything and not delegating things and making sure that they're the one who's there. And if they leave, their business is going to fail. And it's just not true. Again, it goes back to that trust issue of, I've hired this person because I believed in them, and I'm going to throw that to them. It's a leap of faith sometimes for some people because they don't think that their business can make it without them there 24/7. And
there's such a payoff there emotionally if you're the person, right? Like that's That's powerful if you're the person making it happen, and there's a ton of emotional reward. Sorry, I used to be a therapist a long life ago. So I think of everything in terms of kind of like how people interact. My team sometimes loves it, sometimes they hate it. Sorry, team. But Joe, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's about developing confidence in your people. If you never challenge your people or never delegate to your people, what kind of confidence are they ever going to have in making decisions or doing things for you and your company? If you don't challenge them and empower them, they're going to become stagnant and they're going to become disengaged. And that's not what you want. When you challenge somebody, you're telling them, I believe in you. I believe that you can get this done. I believe that you have the abilities and the skills to get this done. And I'm going to trust in what you're doing. If you never do that as a leader in a business or an owner or whatever it might be, you're never going to develop confidence in your people, in themselves, and then they're never going to think that you have confidence in them, and you have a problem.
Fair. Lisa, what do you think?
So one of the things that I've seen a lot is that the leader says, well, gosh, the level beneath me, they don't have time. I can't delegate to them. I'm protecting them. And so what I have found there is I've gone into different departments and looked at what people are doing and start from the bottom and then delegate down. But then also what you need to do is look and see what are people doing that they've maybe been doing the same report for 10 years and nobody even looks at that report. So what are things that can be taken off their plates, or what are some things that could be automated or even outsourced? So having that third party come in and sit down with the team and look at all of the processes, procedures, all the things everyone's doing and what they're doing on their plate, looking at what's adding value and what's not adding value, and get rid of that stuff that's not adding value, and really look at that total organization and push those duties down. So a lot of times it's not because they don't want to delegate or that they're afraid or any of those other things. It's just they're trying to protect their people and say, gosh, I can't overwhelm them anymore.
That's absolutely fair. Yes, and I love your idea of going all the way down and figuring out what where their time's being wasted, because who knows what you could take off that leader's plate if they could start to delegate down. I see a lack of trust in themselves is one of the pieces to this, and it's not that they can't trust themselves to do the job; it's they can't trust themselves to check and follow up and coach appropriately. That they're worried that they're going to forget about it if they don't do it, and therefore it's just never going to happen. And then they're going to have to go to a client or wherever and say, you know what, this didn't happen. So that's definitely also a struggle that I run into. All right, I am going to keep us moving forward briefly. I'm going to talk about Page Black, and we are here on a mission to stop guess and hope marketing. Guess and hope marketing is where you guess about what the marketing should look like, and then you hope it works when you try it, rather than use a plan. And so where I have seen this happen, I just had a call last month where somebody had spent $500,000 on a snail mail campaign. I don't think they lost all that money, but I know they did not get a return off that investment. And that's likely because they didn't really take a look. And so what we're big fans of, and of course we're going to throw our logo on this one, is this data-driven marketing decisions. And so we want to dig in, look at the data, and figure out what is the right plan. If you have questions about that, we just give me a shout and we'll talk about it. Let's move into our next. We have a webinar coming up. It's this coming Tuesday, and the link is already in the chat, so you can sign up for that if you would like. It's sales and marketing are not on the same page. No one's ever seen that, and it's actually that lack of alignment is hurting our revenue. That'll be Tuesday, August 17th. Let's move forward into our next business question. I was supposed to take these out, and I still haven't. So, panel. What is one concrete, and we'll say small step because I'm a big fan of baby steps and the movie in the 90s. Those of you that are old enough do remember the one I'm talking about, I'm sure. What is a small step people can take today? Joe, let's get started with you.
Delegate. Step in there and find something, and it might be the smallest thing, to give you some more confidence. Like you said, Mike, give you more confidence in yourself and more confidence in your trust in the process. But delegate maybe the smallest thing you can to somebody underneath you. I hate using that term underneath you, but delegate something to somebody that you think that they can probably have good success with and so forth, and then start building that trust with yourself and those people from the small things up to the bigger things.
There you go. Speaking of baby steps, you started there. All right, Mark, what's your advice for somebody that struggles with this? What's one concrete other than baby steps? I guess we've said that twice. There's the challenge for you.
Well, I think that one is recognize that you haven't solved everything as the leader, whatever that position is, that you haven't solved everything. That if you're going to create an environment where constant improvement is one of your objectives, that's a way to put the proper context to understanding a role delegating has. So, get that mindset, if you can, to say, what can I do better every day? And the follow-up part to that is then say, well, who on my team may have an affinity for something that I've identified as an area where we can get better? And that might give you the confidence that Joe was talking about to say, I can give this up to someone there because I believe they have the affinity and desire and hopefully talent to be able to deliver on what I'm going to give them.
So true. So the last thing that you should do if you're doing this LinkedIn is follow Joe's advice without looking at the person's capabilities, because if you do the baby step, you delegate, it's kind of, you're sabotaging yourself. If you delegate to the wrong person, of course, they're not going to get it right. So that great combination there. Lisa, what do you think?
So I think that what would eliminate that fear is to approach it as developing your team. So look at who are your star performers in your organization, who's got really high performance, really high potential that you want to retain. Those type of people need to have new challenges. So look at them and then talk to them about what they want to do next. And then look and see, where do you see skill gaps for that person? And look around the organization, whether it be on your plate or somebody, on your team, right underneath you on their plate. What could be delegated to that person so that it develops them? And then if you change that mindset into I'm helping others, I'm coaching others, you're doing a lot of great things there. You're delegating and you're also helping retain those star performers.
All right. Joe gave you a thumbs up, which means he agrees with you. Joe, what sparked that for you? What brings that out for you?
It's all about growth. It's all about progression. I mean, that's the greatest opportunity you have as a leader, is to help your people grow and progress. And it's the greatest thing you can do for your people. And you have to, again, realize that once they grow and progress, what's your business going to do? So that should be your number one focus on a daily basis, is how am I going to grow and progress my people, give them confidence, make them feel engaged, make them feel like they're important, they're empowered, they feel good about working here. They get to come to work. They don't have to come to work. It's all of those things that helps your people grow and progress. And when that happens, your business will take off.
There you go. I had a comment and you blew me away there, and I just lost my comment, Joe. So I appreciate that. But I think you're absolutely true. It does. Clearly, you get passionate about that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Joe.
No.
That leads to so many things. And, someone who's feeling empowered, the next step for them is more natural to take the initiative, intuitively take initiative to make things better around them, make decisions on the workplace in the absence of the leader telling them exactly what should be done. So that delegation immediately leads to that, changing the environment for people where initiative is key, and taking that initiative to do something without having reservations or fear to do it. So it accomplishes so much more than just it. Obviously, personal growth for them is tantamount to their motivation, but for the organization, initiative then becomes much more natural, and you'll get people doing things on their own to make things better.
So talk about, we're almost leading into a culture discussion here as we do this. So I think of our core values as a company is continuous improvement. And I'm starting to also talk, so it means we're all just like, every time there's a mistake, I'm not beating the heck out of people. I'm not yelling at them. We're talking about, okay, what went wrong? What can we do next time to spot it? Is this something we can change? What are the things we need to do in our process? Because it's not people, it's process typically, when you have, especially with big errors. That's culture there. And so what we're talking about with delegating is also culture. How do you see the impact on culture difference between somebody who delegates well and who doesn't, Lisa?
Well, I think you're going to have an organization with higher level of retention of those high performers, because nobody wants that to sit around doing the same thing every day if you are a high potential high performer. So I think that creates a culture of development and a culture of looking at better ways to do things, because when you get a new set of eyes on it, then you start talking about automation, you start talking about better ways to do things. So I think it does change the culture and helps you have a better product for your clients.
Love it. I wrote down one of our new topics for next month is going to be how to build a strong business culture, just because I think I could learn more. I think I'm okay at this, but good. What do you think, Joe? What do you see with culture?
Yeah, I think it builds a culture of vulnerability too, and I think that's big in a business. I think successful businesses, from the top down, people are vulnerable. They're okay to say, I made a mistake, I did this wrong, how do I fix this? Those are the things that help you grow. If you're not vulnerable, if you don't have a culture of it's okay to fail sometimes, and you're not vulnerable with that, and people are afraid to tell you that they failed and so forth, or they didn't get it done, or they didn't get it done the way they thought they maybe should have, or whatever it might be, they're not vulnerable and they can't tell you, and they don't feel comfortable telling you that, there's no growth. And there's no way that they're going to stay in your business. Like Lisa's saying about the retention, if you're vulnerable and you're human and you show people that you're human and you make mistakes and so forth, that's how you grow. So I think the culture of vulnerability is really huge in developing that kind of culture that you want.
Mark, what do you think?
I agree, and that, getting back to the idea of delegation, what we're talking about here, that provides the leader the opportunity to show all those things. So how you handle someone who doesn't deliver to the standard you might have expected provides you an opportunity to show the business empathy that you have, the care and concern you have for their development. That gets right to the heart of building trust, and then it becomes much easier in an organization like that, where the leader is setting the tone for it to be okay to be vulnerable. I mean, I worked with Patrick Lencioni for years with one of the organizations I work with, and some of his work is solely centered on the idea that that vulnerability is central to trust, and without trust you have no growth in an organization. And I think Lisa and Joe have hit those points spot on.
Yeah, I'll just finish this out that we started off with delegation, but in some ways we've talked about the competitive advantage of building an agile organization, because if you can't delegate, they can't learn and grow, and they don't learn to pivot. And then therefore, when you need to pivot your company, they're just not ready, and they will feel scared, and then you're just going to have a lot more problems. So we transferred. That's actually one of my favorite things to read about and work on as our company. So I love that we went there, and maybe it was my fault. So, all right, I am going to move us forward. We are just about done for today, and we will close out next week. We're going to be talking about how middle market companies can leverage data. We have 3 data experts and actually a CEO who's done a nice job with data. So we'll have all of them on. It'll be this same time next week. Thanks, LinkedIn, and have a great day.